Hey everyone, welcome to Horror Talks with Tate, where the shadows come alive, the screams are endless, and we dive into the terrifying world of horror with one chilling story at a time. My name is Tate Irons, your guide through the twisted tales and horrifying moments that make our favorite nightmares come to life. Now, today, we're exploring something truly wild. A childhood classic gone horribly wrong. Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey took the world by storm, transforming the lovable bear into a slasher villain that we never seen before. But does it live up to the hype? What made this film stand out or fall apart? And what does it mean for the future of horror? Grab your honeypots and lock your doors, because this twisted tale is about to get gruesome. Let's dive into the madness of Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, starting with spooky summaries right here on Horror Talks with Tate.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey reimagines the beloved characters from A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh stories in a dark horror context. The movie depicts Pooh and Piglet as feral and dangerous after being abandoned by Christopher Robin. Struggling to survive without his help, they become twisted, losing their innocence and turning into violence. Set in the 100-Acre Wood, the film follows Pooh and Piglet as they encounter a group of unsuspecting visitors who are unaware of the terror lurking in the woods. This horror twist explores themes of abandonment and the disturbing transformation of familiar, once innocent characters into monstrous versions of themselves. Now, horror fans, it's time to head to discreet directors and find out the history and structures and themes for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey was written and directed by Rhys Waterfield and was produced by Scott Jeffrey Chambers. Rhys takes a gritty and unconventional approach, blending horror elements with the whimsical imagery of classic children's literature. This style hinged on reimagining beloved childhood characters like Pooh and Piglet as monstrous, vengeful creatures, creating a jarring contrast that captures the horror comedy genre. Key elements of his style in this film includes: number 1, dark, gritty aesthetic. The movie has a visual dark tone with dim lighting and shadowy scenes to intensify its eerie atmosphere. This contrasts with the lighthearted, colorful world traditionally associated with Winnie the Pooh. Number 2, horror parody and satire. Rhys injects humor and satire into the horror, playing on the audience nostalgia and expectations. The movie uses horror tropes such as the slasher format with a sense of self-awareness, poking fun at both humor clinches and the innocence of childhood stories. Number 3, graphic violence and gore. Emphasizing brutality, the film includes exaggerated and bloody scenes that heightens its shock factor. This heavy use of gore is intended to subvert the cuddly nature of Pooh and his friends, aligning them more with classic horror villains. Number 4, low-budget grindhouse feel. Rhys makes a use of practical effects and modest budget, giving the movie a raw grindhouse vibe. This approach adds to its gritty and unconventional appeal, often prioritizing atmosphere over polish. Number 5. Psychological subversion of innocence. By turning Pooh and Piglet into sinister figures, Frank Waterfield creates a disturbing psychological experience that plays on viewers' memories of childhood tales, unsettling them through the juxtaposition of innocence with terror. This blend of dark humor, gore, and childhood nostalgia place Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey within a niche genre that mixes horror with a surreal twist. The director's unique style makes the film memorable for its bold departure from the classic tales. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey features a cast that brings a twisted version of A.A. Milne's beloved characters to life in a horror setting. Here are the key actors and their role. Craig David Donsett as Winnie the Pooh, Chris Caldwell as Piglet, Nicola Leon as Christopher Robin, Maria Taylor as Maria, Natasha Rose Mills as Jess, Amber Dodge Thorne as Alice, Daniel Ronald as Zoe, Natasha Tossini as Lara, Paula Coz as Mary, May Kelly as Tina, and Richard D. Myers as Logan. In Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the actors embrace a raw, intense, and offers exaggerated style that heightens the horror and dark humor of the film. Rather than attempting to create complex characters, the performance lean into horror archetypes to serve the film's campy tone and surreal premise. Classic childhood characters turned monstrous. The actors portraying Pooh and Piglet use a limbering, almost animalistic psychology, making the characters feel terrifyingly primal, stripped of their cartoon innocence. The human characters, on the other hand, exhibits fear, confusion, and terror in ways that align with the film's slasher root. Their performance reflects classic horror tropes with exaggerated reaction, desperate appeal, and visceral fear. This exaggerated, almost theatrical acting style amplified the film's unsettling atmosphere, fitting its genre-blending approach between horror and absurdity. In Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the narrative structure follows a fairly straightforward slasher horror mat form while introducing an eerie twist to familiar, beloved characters. Here's how the structures unfold. Number 1. Exposition. The film opens with the backstory explaining that Christopher Robin has left the 100 Acre Woods for college, abandoning his childhood friends. In his absence, Pooh and Piglet endure starvation, trauma, and desperation, ultimately transforming into brutal, feral versions of themselves. This setup established the twisted motivation of Pooh and Piglet, adding a dark spin to the well-known characters. Number 2. Inciting innocence. When Christopher Robin returns to the woods years later, hoping to reconnect with Pooh and Piglet, he is horrified to discover they had become vengeful and violent. This encounter triggers the film's elements, introducing the main conflicts between the returning humans and the now feral creatures. And number 3, rising action. A group of friends unaware of the danger plan a getaway in a cabin near the 100 Acre Woods. Pooh and Piglet begin their violent rampage, stalking and eliminating the characters one by one. This middle part of the movie builds tension, suspense, and dread as the character faces horrifying encounters. This horror twist on a classic tale using structured slasher narrative allows the filmmakers to play on nostalgia while creating a jarring contrast that surprises and unsettles the audience. In Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the filmmakers reimagined the beloved 100-acre wood as a dark and eerie forest, turning a once welcoming place into a sinister environment. Here are some of the main scene settings that shaped the film's unsettling atmosphere. Number 1. The 100-acre woods. Unlike its original depiction, this forest is now overgrown, dark, and foreboding. Twisted trees and fog add a sense of dread, with dilapidated signs and abandoned objects scattered to signify the loss of innocence. Number 2. Pooh and Piglet's lair. Their den resembles a decayed, grim hideout filled with disturbing remnants from past victims. It clinches with cruel tools, bones, and bloody evidence, emphasizing their turn from childhood characters into feral predators. Number 3. Christopher Robin's abandoned house. Christopher Robin's former house is shown in disrepair, symbolizing the abandonment and betrayal felt by Pooh and Piglet. The setting also adds emotional weight to Christopher's realization of what his friends have become. Number 4. The remote cabin. A secured cabin serves as a refuge for a group of young adults visiting the woods. With limited options for escape and safety, this cabin becomes a place of terror, reflecting the classic horror trope of isolation. And finally, number 5, the lake and surrounding area. The quiet lake in the 100-acre wood provides an unsettling contrast to the horror. It starts as a peaceful spot for characters to relax, but the tranquility quickly shifts to fear as Pooh and Piglet appear. These scene settings, with a mix of isolation, decay, and darkness, contribute significantly to the horror, creating an atmosphere where the familiar is transformed into something terrifying. In Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the music and sound design takes on an eerie and unsettling tone, intentionally contrasting the original innocence associated with Winnie the Pooh. The score mixes ambient horror music with deep rumbling tone that amplify moments of dread. Sound effects play a key role in building suspense, often using silence followed by jarring sounds like footsteps, creaking, and whispers to keep the audience on edge. It also used distorted children's melodies, which adds a creepy twist to the childhood memories linked to the characters. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey gained significant attention due to its unusual concept, reimagining beloved children's characters in a dark horror-themed story. The production process and history behind the film are as fascinating as its premise. Here's a breakdown. Number 1. The public domain opportunity, inspiration. The project came about because A.A. Milne's original Winnie the Pooh book, which was published in 1926, had entered the public domain on January 1st, 2022. This meant that the character and story elements from the original book could be freely used and adapted by anyone, as long as they didn't infringe on Disney's copyrighted version. Creative leap. Filmmaker Reese Frank Waterfield, who wrote and directed the film, decided to create a horror spin-off by turning Pooh and Piglet into feral, vengeful creatures. The concept of beloved characters turning evil played a nostalgia while appealing to horror fans. Number 2. Low-budget production. Budget. The movie was produced with a modest budget, reportedly under $100,000. Despite this limitation, The team leaned into practical effects, atmospheric setting, and the bizarre premise to generate interest. Quick turnaround. The film was shot in just 10 days in the United Kingdom. This tight schedule required efficient planning and execution. Number 3, plot development. Storyline. The film focuses on Pooh and Piglet becoming feral after Christopher Robin abandons them for college. With no one to provide them food or care, they descend into madness, unleashing violence upon anyone who crosses their path. Tone. While the movie is intentionally over the top and campy, it also plays with slasher and survival horror tropes. Number 4, marketing and viral attention. Viral trailers. The first trailers and promotional image generated massive online buzz. The juxtaposition of the sweet childhood characters with brutal, gory imagery captures audiences' curiosity. Social media. The movie gained traction on platforms like TikTok and Twitter, where fans debate its premise and eagerly anticipated its release. Shock factors. The film's absurdity and willingness to push boundaries made it a hot topic in pop culture. Number 5, release and reception. Theatrical run. Despite being a low-budget film, it receives a limited theatrical release on 15th of February 2023 before becoming available on streaming platforms. Mixed reviews. Critics were divided. Some appreciated its campy, tongue-in-cheek approach, while others criticized its lack of polish and cohesive storytelling. Audience, however, largely enjoyed the film for its absurd entertainment value. The box office of the movie was $7.7 million. The ratings are the IMDb score of 2.9 out of 10 and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 3%. Number 6, controversies. Backlash. Some fans of the original Winnie the Pooh stories criticized the film for tarnishing the legacy of a beloved children's franchise, Disney, which owned the copyright to later depiction of Pooh, made it clear they were not involved and had no legal recourse due to the public domain status of the original book. And finally, number 7, legacy and sequel. Cult following. The movie quickly developed a cult following, with fans embracing its quirky take on horror. Sequel in development. Due to the film's financial success and viral popularity, a sequel was announced, promising an even bigger and bloodier continuation of the story. Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey received significant attention at the 2024 Golden Raspberry Awards, where it swept several categories, typically recognizing the year's worst in film. It won 5 Razzie Awards, including Worst Pictures, Worst Director, Reese Frank Waterfield, Worst Screenplay, Worst Remake, Ripoff or Sequel, and Worst Screen Couple, awarded to Pooh and Piglet, that portrayed by Craig David Dawson and Chris Caldwell. The film gained notoriety for its controversial reimagining of beloved children's characters in a horror setting, drawing both critical scorn and attention for its Bond premise. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey stand as an example of how public domain works can inspire wildly creative and unexpected interpretation, providing that even the most cherished childhood characters can take a terrifying turn. In Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the props, weapons, and CGI elements are critical to establish the film's grim and horror-filled atmosphere. Here's a breakdown, starting with props. Number 1, Pooh and Piglet's costume. Detailed, grotesque masks and outfits transform the beloved characters into terrifying villains. The masks are lax based with exaggerated features like sharp teeth and menacing eyes. Number 2, honey pots. Used as a recurring prop to symbolize Pooh's connection with his original persona while incorporating a dark twist, sometimes used in sinister ways. Number 3, creepy forest setting. The props include hanging ropes, makeshift weapons, and other set elements that amplify the eerie nature of the 100-acre wood turned dark. Now, for weapons. Number 1, sledgehammer. Piglet used this in several brutal scenes, emphasizing his brute strength and violent tendencies. Number 2, machete. Both Pooh and Piglet wield these in their attacks, reinforcing their role as predators. Number 3, chains. Often used for dragging victims or as part of their torture method. And finally, number 4, improvised weapons. Objects like branches and kitchen items appear in scenes where victims try to defend themselves. And now, for CGI. Number 1, blood and gore effects. The film used CGI to enhance splatter and brutality in kill scenes, making them more graphic. For example, CGI blood sprays during some of the most gruesome moments, like the jacuzzi scene, which is my favorite kill because it's like the car scene where Pooh uses a car to kill Lara. OMG. Number 2, animalistic movements. Subtle CGI effects as unnatural jerky movements to Pooh and Piglet, heightening their monstrous behavior. And finally, number 3, facial expression on masks. While the masks are primarily physical props, CGI enchants expressions like snarl or subtle blinking to make the character appear more lifelike and unsettling. Overall, the combination of practical props, crude but effective weapons, and CGI touches gives Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey its unique mix of slasher horror and twisted nostalgia. In Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, several moments serve as foreshadowing to build tension and hint at further events. Here's a breakdown of key examples of foreshadowing in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Number 1, Christopher Robin's departure. Early in the film, Christopher Robin's decision to leave Pooh and his friends in the 100-acre woods sets the stage for the character's descent into savagery. This abandonment foreshadows the twisted and vengeful nature of Pooh and Piglet later in the story. Number 2, the opening animation. The animated prologue explains how Pooh and Piglet survived by eating Eeyore after being abandoned. This gruesome act hints at their capacity for brutality and the length they'll go to for survival, setting up the violent events of the movie. Number 3, the isolated setting. The 100-acre wood is present as dark, desolate, and foreboding. The eerie atmosphere and the sense of isolation foreshadows the character's inability to escape once the carnage begins. Number 4, Piglet's chain and mullet. The recurring imagery of Piglet's chain and mullet hints at his brutal tendency and foreshadows their use in the later murders. This is reinforced by the movie's focus on close-up shots of the weapons. And finally, number 5, Christopher Robin's captivity. Christopher Robin's early capture and his cries of anguish foreshadows the emotional and psychological torment he endures, as well as the ultimate reveal of Pooh's betrayal and fixation on revenge against him. These elements of foreshadowing works together to create a sense of dread and inevitability, immersing the audience in the horror as the story unfolds. Now it's time to go to the final segment of this episode, Insane Insiders, and discuss the Easter eggs, fun facts, and the audience reviews for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey contains several Easter eggs and references that nod to the original Winnie the Pooh stories and its history. These are some notable ones. Number 1, the 100 Acre Woods. The film's setting directly references the classic 100 Acre Woods, the beloved home of Pooh and his friends in the original stories. However, in the film, it's a dark, desolate, and menacing forest, reflecting the twisted nature of this adaptation. Number 2, Christopher Robin's role. The movie hinged on Christopher Robin abandoning Pooh and Piglet, a dark twist on the theme of growing up and leaving childhood behind, a motive present in the original stories. It flips the wholesome narrative into a horror-driven revenge plot. Number 3, Pooh's iconic look. Despite the horror aesthetic, Pooh retains his signature red shirt. This detail serves as a chilling visual tied to his innocent origin, contrasting starkly with his monstrous demeanor. Number 4, Eeyore's tragic end. In the opening exposition, it reveals that Pooh and Piglet ate poor Eeyore to survive. This grim twist references Eeyore's reputation as the perpetual gloomy character taken to an extreme in this dark universe. Number 5, Honey obsession. Pooh's fixation on Honey is retained, but with a sinister edge. Honey becomes symbolic of his primal and grotesque behavior, a distorted echo of the character's childlike love for the treat in the original tale. Number 6, Piglet's design. Piglet's feral appearances includes Tusk, a nod to his pig heritage, but reimagined as monstrous and predatory. This transformation twists his gentle, timid character from the books into a horrifying counterpart. Number 7, no Tigger. Tigger is absent from the movie because of the character's copyright is still under Disney's control. Whereas the original Winnie the Pooh stories entered the public domain in 2022, his absence may serve as a subtle nod to this legal nonce. Number 8, book references. The movie's prologue mimics a storybook style, complete with illustration that give a dark and twisted overview of Pooh and Piglet's descent into savagery after being abandoned. This pays homage to A.A. Milne's original narrative style. And finally, number 9, play on nostalgia. Lines and imagery subtly parody or distort the charm of the original story. For instance, location and character dynamics are present as grotesque parallels of the cherished adventures from childhood. These Easter eggs combine to create a subversive take on Winnie the Pooh, transforming nostalgia into terror while remaining tied to the source material in unsettling ways. Here are the fun facts of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Number 1. Public domain opportunity. The movie was possible because the original Winnie the Pooh book by A.A. Milne entered the public domain in January 2022. However, Disney still owns the rights to their Pacific version, so the filmmakers had to avoid using elements unique to Disney's portrayal, such as Pooh's red shirt. Number 2. Low budget production with high returns. Made on a modest budget of under $100,000, the film became a surprise hit, grossing over $4 million worldwide. Its success demonstrated a growing appeal of horror movies with unique premise. Number 3. Rapid development. The film was written, shot, and edited within a few months after the source material entered the public domain. The quick turnaround allowed to capitalize on the novelty of the concept. Number 4. Pooh and Piglet as slasher villains. This was the first time these beloved characters were reimagined as killers. In this version, Pooh and Piglet become feral after being abandoned by Christopher Robin, who leaves for college. Number 5. Fan reactions spark a cult following. The bizarre premise and creepy trailer created a lot of buzz online, sparking memes, fan territories, fan theories, and both excitement and outrage from audience before the movie even premiered. Number 6. Sequel already planned. Due to the film's financial success, a sequel has been greenlit. The filmmakers have teased a darker, bloodier continuation of the story. Number 7. Filming location. The movie was filmed in England, utilizing eerie woods and an abandoned cabin to heighten the atmosphere of isolation and terror. Number 8. Horror mashup trend. The film is part of a growing trend of childhood nostalgia being reimagined as horror. Other projects like The Me One, a parody of The Grinch, also played in this concept. And finally, number 9, global popularity. Although controversial, the film gained attention internationally, with fans clamoring to see how this quirky and sinister interpretation would unfold. The audience reviews for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey revealed a mix of negative reception. While some found the premise intriguing, many criticized the film for poor execution, lack of creativity, and weak character development. The film's low-budget production was evident, with complaints about the mask, pacing, and unoriginal slasher tropes. However, a small number of fans enjoy its gore and novelty as a dark twist on childhood nostalgia. Now, before we wrap up this episode, I have to share my thoughts and review of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. This movie truly captivated me because of how brilliant it flips the script on one of our most cherished childhood characters, transforming them into chilling villains. Ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by the idea of turning innocent tales into dark, twisted horror stories, and this film delivers that in the most gruesome and entertaining way possible. Watching these once lovable characters go on a terrifying killing spree was both shocking and oddly satisfying for a horror fan like me. The story kept me engaged, and the kills absolutely brutal and creatively gory, just the way horror fans love it. If you're intrigued meeting bloody horror, then I highly recommend checking out Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's a wild ride that you don't want to miss. Well, that's all for today's episode of Horror Talks with Tate. I hope you had as much fun as I did dive into the twisted world of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's fascinating how something so innocent and nostalgic can be transformed into such a dark and sinister tale. Whether you loved it, hated it, or just plain horrified, there's no denying that this movie made a lasting impression. But here's the exciting part. We're just getting started. In our next episode, we'll be exploring the sequel, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. From what's been teased so far, it looks like they're delving down on the gore, ramping up the terror, and diving even deeper into this reimagined nightmare. I'll be discussing everything we know so far, from the plot and characters to behind the scene insights, and what we can expect from this next installment, which is already out, and I hope you guys have seen it. So, if you're a fan of unique horror or just curious about how these beloved childhood characters continue their bloody rampage, you won't want to miss this. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next episode drops. And hey, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey? Were you excited for the sequel? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one of them. Thank you so much for tuning in to Horror Talks with Tate. Your support means the world to me and helps me bringing you these deep dive into the world of horror. Until next time, stay spooky, stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next video.